When are we going to see the first billionaire YouTuber? Well, I think it might happen through the same way that 100 Thieves got started, one of the biggest esports brands on the planet. Today, we're sitting down with Blake Robbins, who, as a venture capitalist at Ludlow Ventures, helped build 100 Thieves. And he's only 26. Let's get started. Blake, thank you for hanging out, man. I really appreciate you coming on. Yeah. From a gamer and YouTube aficionado, probably a streamer also, now you're a venture capitalist. That's just a really cool story. Would love for you to talk to everyone about that. How did you get started? How do you even find out about venture capital? It's a really cool story.
I was born and raised in suburbs of Detroit. Always sort of just assumed I'd end up in the automotive world. I knew as a kid I didn't want to be a doctor or a lawyer. And I was like, okay, well, if you're in Michigan, you sort of just end up in automotive. Quickly realized once I got to college, go and try and work at one of these big automotive companies or Fortune 500 companies. And I went to career fair, and this is my freshman year of college, and every single company at the career fair was like, we're not hiring freshman interns, whatever. And I was like, this is just weird. Like, what is going on? Why are these companies not optimizing for, I don't know, ambitious kids who want to learn, and people don't value me as like a freshman who's ambitious? Like, then I'm probably not going to want to work there. And so I just immediately started to like look at what maybe companies want to work with me. And I was like, startups seem like they might need help. Sort of known what software and tech and startups were, but only from a very high level, like in high school, just trying out new apps. And I started to research it more, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's like so many interesting companies here. This is much more up my alley than I thought. I just went on TechCrunch my freshman year and just started cold emailing every company that was on the front page at the time, and which is like super crazy. And I don't know if I would do that again today, but it worked. And one of the companies I was a company called Zarly, which was like a reverse Craigslist or eBay at the time. They just raised a bunch of money from Kleiner.
Marketplace
Yeah, exactly.
business.
And I emailed the CEO. The CEO was like, yeah, you should do campus marketing for us. We're always looking for more help. And from that, I was like, this is amazing. I got exposure to the broader ecosystem because the prize for being like a top campus marketer was that you got to go to the Bay Area. They took you on like tours of other startups. Like at the time it was like Square and some other like startups at the time, and got to go to a board meeting, which was like the real prize for going or like being a top campus marketer. There's only like two of us. I basically like my mind just like broke. I was like, this is amazing. What? Like, this is someone's job. I want to do that. And from that point forward, just became obsessed with trying to break into venture capital. I reached out to like every single investor that I could think of while I was in college. And every investor essentially said the same thing, which is like, good luck. You're not going to end up in this out of college. That's just super rare. If you want to work for one of our portfolio companies, let us know. Like, we're happy to help on that side. I just continued to view my resume as if it was a portfolio in some ways. And so went and interned at like SpaceX and Nest and a couple other companies that like well known, but not to the level that they are now. Like SpaceX at the time didn't even have a website. Like I remember telling my parents I was going to like LA for a summer, and they're like, what are you talking about? There's no website. Like, who is this Elon person? And obviously, I mean,
Takes 10 years for these famous things to actually
yeah,
become
this
famous.
is 2012, 2013, and still like it was a pretty big company at the time. Like, they're probably already $1 billion company, but still most people didn't know in the mainstream who they were. And by the time I graduated college, it looked way better on my resume. And used that strategy throughout college.
That happened for me for
Oh, see,
Palantir.
exactly.
If you're in 2004, nobody had heard of it and wouldn't really hear about it for another even 10 years. And then 17, 18 years later, they've
Yeah,
IPO'd.
I mean, it's
So
a good example of if you don't maybe have the resources or like capital to invest in a company, you can invest your time, which is probably more valuable than anything else anyways. I tried to view my resume as if I could just actually allocate time to this, show that I'm betting on a company by choosing where I'm going. And then by the time I graduated, it just looked a lot better on my resume. By the time I got to my senior year, I already had like SpaceX and Nest and General Assembly and a bunch of other tech companies at the time. And I reached out to Ludlow, who was in Detroit, and I basically just reached out cold. And I was like, I was at Michigan State for college and have a super light final year of college. Is there any way I can intern with you? Like, it doesn't need to be anything super fancy or formal. I just want to learn. They ignored my email. I went and reached out to Ryan Hoover from Product Hunt, who I just gotten to know actually.
he's connected so
Yeah,
many
I mean,
people. Yeah.
he's amazing. I got to know him before Product Hunt when he was running his blog back in the day. when Ludlow actually was an investor in Product Hunt. Weirdly, had a connection into Ludlow because I knew Ryan more than I knew Ludlow. And so I reached out to Ryan. I was like, I'm in Detroit. I should know these guys. Is there any way you'd be willing to vouch for me? And he sent an email, and you guys should all chat. Met up with the team at Ludlow. It was a team of 2 at the time. And I was basically like, can I please just intern here? And again, they were like, we don't really want to babysit anyone. Like, we don't want to teach anyone. We're busy, all of that stuff. And I was like, I completely understand. Is there any way I could just have an email address? I just leveraged an email address for the first 6 months of my senior year of just reaching out to interesting people or founders and being like, hey, I'm a junior person at a venture firm. I just want to learn, and it'd be great to chat with you. And I just started sending my notes to Jonathan Brett at Ludlow, and they're like, oh, wow, like, how are you getting these meetings? Like, what's going on? And I'm just like, yeah, I'm sort of just shameless with it for my entire senior year. And then by the end, they were like, please come and join us. Been here now for almost 5 years.
Yeah. People talk about hustle a lot. This is the right kind of hustle. For me, I got my first job cold calling the yellow pages and the internet sections. And then I got my first coding job by cold emailing a bunch of design firms in San Francisco that had created amazing things. When you're starting off, being really persistent, but also thinking about what does the person you're emailing want, and being really persistent plus being very thoughtful. Actually, plenty of people are crazy persistent. Very few people are that thoughtful, actually. This is a very interesting case study, both in your career and in mine, just starting out.
I think when you're going and reaching out cold to people, you just have to take a step back and realize, like, what are they actually focused on? And like, what are they allocating their time towards? And how can you maybe help assist with that? And obviously, like, there's tons of advice of like, try and add value in your cold email or whatever it is, but they're always trying to find new companies. They're always trying to meet new interesting people. Why don't I just use this name or the email address? I'll continue to try and find those interesting people, throw it out there and see what happens. They took a risk in some way of giving me an email address. It wasn't that big of a risk. Like, worst case scenario, I'm just like a kid who didn't get a response from someone.
The joke now is VCs will always say, how can I be helpful? And the reason why that's a joke now is that most people end up not being helpful at all. It's sad because that saying is basically throwing the baby out with the bathwater, which is like, done right, earnestly, that is actually how a good VC does it. It's like not saying it.
It sucks that it's turned into a meme purely because of people not delivering on what they're saying. At least for me, I'm always just like, if I'm going to offer to do help and someone asks me on it, like, please just ask and I'll do my best to deliver on it. I'll be honest if I don't know.
I mean, even what Ryan did. Like what Ryan did for you to make that connection created more value in the world than was going to be there before.
And I think that was the main reason why I was actually drawn to startups and tech and this whole community to begin with, was that people were so willing to talk to me. If I reached out to some big investment bank and a freshman in college, chances are they probably wouldn't have responded to me, or like even a consulting firm. But there were so many people that were willing to just like talk and spend time with me because there is so much of this like pay it forward mentality within this ecosystem. Even to this day, people reach out to me cold all the time, and I try my best to be helpful in any ways that I can.
That's awesome. I noticed in the back you have a 100 Thieves jersey. I think that's one of the really cool stories. Where did that happen as a part of the story?
In high school, I was always obsessed with gaming. I really wanted to be a professional gamer. That was my aspirations. And in the same way that we talk about now, people will say kids want to be professional gamers or streamers or YouTubers. That was like already me. Like, I was already that person I'm going to be a professional Call of Duty player. This is going to be my life. I want to do that. I basically just stopped playing my senior year of high school because I was like, okay, I need to focus on school. And my parents, what are you doing? You're playing like Call of Duty until like 2 a.m. every single night. What's going on? I remember going to college and turning on like a Call of Duty tournament. This is so weird. Like, I know a lot of these people. Like, these are people that I used to play with back in the day. And that was just super eye-opening for me because this parallel universe that's happened. When I got into venture, there was a lot of people talking about competitive gaming and just gaming in general. And I was like, this is really strange because it seems like it's a lot of people who aren't really in this ecosystem. I still live and breathe this space. But like, I play a ton of video games still. I still play a lot of League of Legends, a lot of Valorant, Fortnite, you name it. I was like, there's probably an opportunity to just talk and write about it, esports and gaming and things like that. Let's say 2016. So one of my first years at Ludlow full time, our biggest help is Dan Gilbert, who owns Quicken Loans and the Cavs and things like that. And so he pulled me into a meeting. We're all talking. We started talking about just like esports as a broader top, and if there was going to be a strategy to make a move there, and kept talking about it. We talked to a bunch of different teams. Should we invest in X, Y, and Z existing team or whatever? There was sort of this moment of sitting there and we're like, feels like the Wild West out there. Is there a world where we can like incubate or do our own thing here? And obviously, like the initial thought was like, can we just fund a new company called Dan Gilbert's esports team and like build it from there? And I think everyone quickly realized that's not enough in and of itself. Like we need to figure out a way to enter into the space in a really endemic and just thoughtful way. And so
brand matters.
Brand matters a lot. And we were sitting there, and for me, I was still like living and breathing the space. I still am really obsessed with the space. There was a big YouTuber named Nadeshot who played for a big team called Optic Gaming. Before that, there was this whole storyline of him leaving Optic Gaming, sort of like sitting on the sidelines after he retired. He was doing full-time YouTube. He had started this brand 100 Thieves as like basically an experiment like a year prior. He like threw up a Twitter page for it and was like, I'm going to do this. Turns out like he didn't have anyone on his team. It was literally just like him trying to do it. He threw up the banner, played like one game of Call of Duty. Like he signed like one amateur team, and then like it folded immediately. And so the brand was just sitting there dormant, sitting there. I floated internally. I was like, what if we just approach this YouTuber Nadeshot and ask him like if he wants to do 100 Thieves right this time? Really nailed the experience.
And you knew him from your gaming days, or you just knew
I knew him.
from YouTube?
I knew him as a fan and as someone who watched his videos, and more as we followed each other on Twitter because I would tweet about him and what he was doing with 100 Thieves, but we didn't know each other in like any formal capacity. Even saying we knew each other is almost a lie. I floated the idea, and then very quickly after, everyone was like, that sounds sick. Like, why didn't you tell us that sooner? Like, that would be amazing. And obviously, like, the reason why I didn't say it sooner is because I was like, I don't know if this is even possible. From that moment forward, Blake, like, deliver on this. Like, that would be amazing. We should talk to him. And so I just sent DM to him. Okay, there's a billionaire who wants to meet with you. We think we can do something really cool with this. He ignored me for like, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks. And like, again, this is like persistence to a crazy level where I was DMing him 3 times a week with no response. I mean, if you look back, it actually like looks like I'm insane. Like, why am I continuing to do this? But like, it was more of, I just had a ton of conviction. It was the right thing for everyone to be doing. And I really thought like we could help change his life. And I continued to do it. He didn't respond. The Cavs actually got into the NBA Finals. I asked Dan if we can get some tickets. I think this will work. He's a big NBA fan. Let me just ask him if he'll like fly out for the NBA Finals game. He like immediately responded. And from that, we just started talking, and I sent him over a pitch deck like before he like flew over to the game. The general idea and concepts, like let me know if it aligns. Like it's based off of my read of how you initially were going to approach this. Basically just expanded on that.
You're not asking how can I be helpful. You're saying this is how I can be helpful.
I literally was like, here is the pitch deck we should all talk about. Let me know your thoughts. And when he landed, he texted me. I was like, oh, wow, this is really cool. I'm hyped on this. Like,
how many subs did he have at that point?
We had like 1.5 million or 2 million subscribers at that point. And again, it was a crazy thing because he was doing really well independently. He didn't have a reason to necessarily be doing this. I think a ton of credit goes to him because he put a lot on hold in his personal life to then start a company. Like it's not every day someone knocks on your door and they're like, hey, do you actually want to run a company and be a CEO of a company? Especially when you're having like very independently wealthy from your own business that you're like, which is your main brand. We pitched it, we talked, and everyone was like, let's do it. That would be amazing. We all like left really happy and could be really cool. But the problem was like, Nadeshot needed to continue to create content, stream, do his day-to-day.
It's a lot of work to be a YouTuber.
Yeah, exactly. And then I'm still doing my day job. Everyone else has their own day jobs. I'm like, what do we do? We started to just like try and poke around and hire out the team. And so one of the first people I hired was a guy named Jackson Dahl. He was actually a part of the team at Lowercase with Mazio and Saka. And he was basically looking for his next gig. And I reached out to him and I knew he was interested in League of Legends in this space. You should meet with Nadeshot. I think you'd be a great first employee. This would be awesome. And he was the first person we hired. And then from there, helped hire out the entire business team. And it's been a fun journey so far. And I think there's going to be so many more storylines that happen.
Now it's one of the most well-known. It's easily one of the most well-known esports brands that exists. And my favorite thing about this story is it came directly out of what you were just by nature interested in. What you were able to do is take cold emails, turn that into a job, and then turn that job into a really, really valuable company just by connecting different things that were sort of just sitting there. Actually, it just wouldn't have happened without those
Yeah, I
connections.
love, I don't know, for me, my favorite part about this job is connecting really smart people with each other and being like, hey, just figure out what you want to do. I think you two will have a great conversation. And that is like always what I'm optimizing for. Like, I love just making connections and introducing people and being like, hey, I have no idea what will happen from this, but I think you two will have a great conversation. And I'm 26. And so
That's
trying
amazing. I didn't even start a company until like a couple years after where you're at. So
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
awesome.
I'm still very early in my career, but I'm always trying to just like engineer serendipity and put myself in the right places at the right time, be with the right people, and it's also why I spend a lot of time within the creator space, and that's the other side of all of this, which is like I spend a lot of time going deep into content creator space more broadly. Nadeshot and 100 Thieves is one example of what happens when a creator is opting to build something bigger than their own personal brand. I've been super interested in what other areas is there potential to do that? Is there platforms that can be built to help make that easier? Maybe if you don't want to go a venture scale route, maybe you just want to launch your own surfboard company. Like if you're Casey Neistat, who's been surfing a bunch in his videos, if he wants to go and make a wetsuit or a surfboard, is there going to be a company that just makes that super easy for them? That's how I'm thinking about it.
I think that's almost certainly going to
Yes,
happen.
exactly.
I think I met you through Clubhouse and as a part of meeting Mr. Beast for the first time. Obviously, now you can meet every YouTuber out there. That's one of the funny things about VC is that once you have a cool story like that, it actually just compounds. Like people start reaching out to
Yeah.
you, or those cold emails get replied to very
Yeah,
quickly.
it's funny. I think I actually met Mr. Beast, like actually just Twitter. I'm very active on Twitter and I love tweeting and like educating people on things that maybe they wouldn't be. And I've always been like a very vocal supporter of Mr. Beast and the strategies that he's done and helping educate sort of the broader venture ecosystem. Because I think YouTube is largely misunderstood, or just content creators are pretty misunderstood within our industry. And so I spent a good amount of time just educating people on who Mr. Beast is and why everyone should be paying attention to him. And he just started paying attention. He's like, who is this kid who keeps like tweeting about me? And so from that, just started to meet him. I got to know his manager, and it's been a really fun journey so far. I helped him actually launch or partner up with Mischief for Finger on the App. I've gone really deep with him and trying to figure out what businesses or products can he launch, and that's just always what I'm obsessing over. And I think for creators, it's really cool because you get to flip the question of what does my audience actually want? What should I build? You know, if you're just building and hoping that you find a problem, that's very different than being audience first and like looking at what your community, your audience can want or need. And well, I know what my brand is. I know what my audience likes. What can I build for them? That's a very different question than just like starting out cold with no audience or
Yeah.
distribution.
As a VC, I'm super interested in what influencers can do simply because it's been years and years since you could really build a pure consumer brand from nothing. And so you basically, I think the influencer strategy is the only strategy that can repeatably work in 2020. 10 years ago, 8 years ago, like 15 years ago, the platforms were so new. So you could actually create Facebook because the platforms were actually open. The APIs were open. People didn't price ads properly yet, right? There wasn't the second price auction model with AdWords and Facebook ads. And those were really driving all of consumer behavior and whether or not businesses can be viable. And I think that's the most powerful thing ever about YouTube is that there's no mediation. It's literally your Google account, like your Google account, and whether or not you can post to, whether the audience is 10,000 subs or 10 million subs. Either way, it's one person who has their finger on the upload button. And that means that you don't have to pay. Like you don't have to raise 10 million in venture capital and then spend it on Facebook and Google ads. That's really cool.
I think a lot of people have said consumer, I don't know, is dead in a lot of ways because of the lack of distribution.
Yeah,
Yes.
except for this part.
Right? Like
this part is not dead. It's just getting started, really.
All these other consumer companies that are being started today are essentially just forced to pay an insane amount of tax to Facebook. And I mean, like literally basically just like Facebook and YouTube and Google. And it's results in pretty bad economics. Like you look at a lot of these direct to consumer companies and like if you look at the S1s, it's like, oh, wow, they're actually paying a lot to acquire these users. If you can flip that where you're like, you know what, I actually have 10 million followers and I can just go and talk to them and tell them do whatever, right? Or like push whatever product that I build, and you bring them along for your journey. And Casey Neistat and Beam, a lot of that was really a huge distribution hack. He started that to help cover him starting a company. And I think we're going to see more and more
Get
of that.
them users, you know, and it worked. You could argue it worked really
I mean,
well.
it got a ton of eyeballs and tons of people talking about it. So at that point, it's not a failure because of distribution. It might just be a failure because of the product or whatever. That's a much different thing, and hopefully a much easier thing to solve for than actually getting 10 million people to download your app, or however many people downloaded Beam on that first week or month.
That's a good case study of distribution is not enough. You also need a great product. And so you actually need sort of back-to-back home runs. If you can hit 2 or 3 home runs in a row, these things turn into billion-dollar companies, actually. And that's what you could argue Snapchat, or certainly Facebook before it, became. So I guess the two sides here, you're sitting in between tech and tech startups, and then working with these people who have unprecedented organic reach. Let's start with the startup side. I mean, how should founders be thinking about approaching working with advisor shares? Is it working through an agency? Like, what have you seen work?
Right now, I mean, it still is sort of the Wild West. I think everyone is trying to figure out their strategy within the space. We've obviously seen SeatGeek and Honey and some of these brands do really, really well through influencer marketing. Yeah, Squarespace. Yeah, we've seen a lot of them do really well through influencer marketing. I think right now,
this video not sponsored by Squarespace.
Yeah, or Honey or SeatGeek. There is this really cool opportunity where if you get it right, if you find the right creator and the right audience and the right startup, there's something really amazing that can happen for both parties. But I think, I mean, right now it seems like almost everyone is just doing the traditional, I'll just pay you per video. And I mean, obviously that gets pretty expensive depending on the size.
Yeah. So cash for impressions.
Exactly. Just very simply, you pay for 1 or 2 videos, and it's just like, okay, let's hope that this video does well. But I think and hope that that is going to change over time.
Is there like a going rate, or when you talk to people about it, how do you think about it? Is there, I'm sure every vertical is very different, and so there are different rates.
Yeah,
but
I mean, it really depends. I would say on the small scale, I don't know, I'll say small scale in the sense of maybe you'll get 50 to 250,000 views. That probably costs anywhere between like $5,000 to $10,000 for a video on someone's channel who's averaging in that range. I mean, I've heard as high as like 500K or something like that for some really big channels. But it's all over the place. And my guess is that those rates actually just continue to go up, because in the same way that you realize there is this weird arbitrage opportunity right now where it's probably cheaper to pay someone $500,000 for 10 or 20 million views than actually just going directly to Facebook and Google for those impressions. And it's
and compared to a Super Bowl ad, it's actually 10x cheaper still.
Exactly, right? Like you're getting Super Bowl impressions and you're getting it directly from the creator. So like it should be even more, right? Like it's the equivalent of like a radio ad, you know, where it feels like it means more because there is direct influence, and if they're being authentic, then it's even better. I think that is going to shift, and there's going to be companies that realize there is even bigger opportunity of partnering up with these creators and saying like, hey, what if I give you a small amount of equity in exchange for a certain number of videos? Like if you are, I don't know, a Series A startup, and you're like, I want to do like 10 videos with Mr. Beast. Who knows how much that actually is? That's probably like $4 or $5 million, right? You're not going to spend all of your money from a Series A or whatever to go directly into Mr. Beast videos. But the way that you can get around that is like, what if you give them some exchange of equity, align all parties, so it's actually like a genuine endorsement. You can get 10 videos for, I don't know, a quarter point or a half a point of a company. And that hopefully works out incredibly well for both parties.
I mean, if it can actually create the brand, get all of your initial users, and there's a viral effect, I mean, that's priceless. And it's interesting because one way to think about it on the creator side is that 1/4 to 0.5% of a company, you can actually convert that into dollars, like just figure out what the valuation of the company is. So if the company is worth $10 million, it's like, that's 50 grand, right? But that might be how much that same company pays an engineer in terms of equity, and that's vested over 4 years. So a YouTube creator for 5 or 10 videos potentially could get basically the same equity as one of the first 10 engineers, but that engineer has to work 4 years, 60 or 70 hours a week to earn that. And so it's actually worth quite a lot. And then if that company, because of that promotion, perhaps becomes worth 100 million, then that's 50, but 500,000. If it becomes a Snapchat or Twitter or Facebook or any sort of thing on that order, that's some nice walking around money at that point. That's another 100x on 100 to 1,000.
Yeah, I mean, if you are, the real problem is that, like, if you're a creator and you're sitting there and they're giving me 50K of equity, if you just do that math, what? Like, you're giving me $50,000 worth of equity for the equivalent of my market rate of, I don't know, a couple $1 million in videos. That's a hard thing for them to get over. I think what you mentioned is really important to highlight to any creators that are watching this, which is that is literally the same amount as someone who is working every single day on making this company more valuable and making this product succeed. And they're doing it for 4 years to earn all of that. And I mean, they're working, I don't know, let's say 70 hours a week, make that equity worth more money. You are doing 10 videos or 5 videos and you're getting just as much upside. Yes, you're bringing tons of eyeballs and distribution to it, but there is still so many people that are working behind the scenes to make this company more valuable. In theory, it should be super synergistic and that you're all aligned. And hopefully this company is tens of billions of dollars and everyone is super happy about that. Really, the opportunity cost of doing that is that you're just not doing another ad read on your video. And so maybe you lost a couple $100,000 in theory of opportunity costs. But the upside, you have uncapped upside in theory if the company actually works. And if you believe in yourself that you're going to bring a ton of distribution into it and you believe in the product, then like it should be a no-brainer. And I think this will really work well with companies that have already sort of proven product market fit within like whatever you want to define that as in this case, but they've already proven that they can retain their users and people like the product. So it's like you're just basically pouring a ton of gas on the fire at that point.
So I think that that's a really viable thing that probably needs to happen a lot more is this type of equity for impression sort of deal that actually just works really well. The economics work on both sides. And then it works really well for the creator if the company turns out to be an Uber. And I think that actually happened for a number of celebrities as a part of the Uber IPO. There's lots of precedents for it. The difficulty is like maybe 9 out of 10 startups, 99 out of 100 startups that might come across, they don't make it. That's the only
yeah. I mean,
that's
it's the risk that they go with, but it's also, I mean, they're not really risking any capital in the same way that other people are. They're risking distribution, that like they're pushing their audience towards a product that maybe won't be around in a couple of years. Obviously, you should only do this if you believe in the product itself and the company itself. Like if you don't believe in the product or company, then that's like a non-starter. You shouldn't even be having the conversation. But if you genuinely believe in it, then it can be a really, really awesome opportunity.
The next level up in terms of startups and influencers working together is sort of the creator as co-founder. We've just walked through a really fantastic example that you were at the core of around 100 Thieves. What are some of the things that tech product business co-founder plus like creator co-founders, like what are sort of the considerations each side should think through as they enter that type of thing?
Yeah, it's something I've spent a lot of time thinking about and mainly because there's so many nuances. As you get into the weeds of these companies, there's a lot to tackle around, like even simple questions of, I don't know, with let's say LeBron was going to start a company tomorrow. Okay, well, LeBron is going to make most of his money from his NBA deal or his endorsement deals. Automatically sort of skews how incentivized they are to be caring about this business, because it's not the core thing that they're going to be making their money from. And so, okay, well, in an upside case, yes, they will hopefully make more money from this than previously doing, but their risk for failure is like they don't really care because they're going to be fine in an alternative sense. So that's always the one thing that I'm like super focused on, is like, how do you just make sure everything that they're doing is aligned with the end goal of this business? Because that is just fundamentally the core of starting a company. Like in a weird way, you don't want someone to become independently successful and wealthy by using the venture dollars to help make them more legitimate and all the resources of that company, but they're still able to like succeed and do incredibly well without the investors or the employees who work for that company being a part of that upside. And
so structuring it really fundamentally is really important. It's almost a burn the boats kind of thing, because when you have co-founders and a team and a brand and a startup that you're trying to get off the ground, if someone has this other thing that will make them successful no matter what, then that's not actually total alignment. And that actually makes teams split apart very quickly.
it's a weird thing to balance, especially because if your other thing that you're doing, it starts to take off and you're making even more from money from that, then it's like, okay, what this thing on the side, I don't really care about it anymore. Like, yes, it's my name's on it, but they'll slowly depart or the company will fail. And that's one thing.
For a creator, it might actually be like, if you want to burn the boat and be an equal co-founder to product engineering and design and like the other functions, you might actually have to assign the ownership of the YouTube channel itself to the company, align everyone that way. If you don't want 0.25%, you want 25 or 50% working full time together, and in that sort of way. That's the skin in the game version. That is probably the version that actually
I think
works.
it's one of the only ways to actually structure it, because anything else, they're just on the side. They're going to continue to focus on the thing that they can just make independent wealth from. I think that is the cleanest way to do it, is be like, hey, you're actually going to pull that YouTube video or YouTube channel into this business, and the LLC will own it or whatever. And there's probably something around like, if this company fails, you get your YouTube channel back. But the real thing is like, let's just make sure everyone's aligned and we all want upside in that. And it's honestly better for the creator too at that point, because now you have a team and venture dollars that are going into actually making your channel better. It super aligns everyone, instead of people being like, why is that person focused on growing their Instagram page or making TikToks right now? And it's like, well, it actually helps contribute to everything, which is a very different dynamic than you just being like a random co-founder and saying, hey, LeBron's a co-founder of this business. And okay, well, what does that actually mean? And that's always the nuance that I think everyone should be exploring when they hear celebrity co-founders, because especially for actors or athletes, where it's really hard. Like, you're not gonna be able to say, hey, all of the money that you make from the NBA is going to go into this business. That's just not going to happen. That is a very different dynamic and a difficult dynamic for a lot of people to navigate.
These things are definitely working. I mean, look at Aviation Gin. True co-founder, actually big part of that brand success. We're going to see a lot more of that, and hopefully you and I get to fund some of it.
I think especially in the direct-to-consumer or CPG space, it actually works probably just a little bit better when it's like, hey, you can continue to do your acting and you just continue to be the biggest star ever, and you have a set number of commitments to promote the brand and be the co-sign of it. I think it gets difficult when you're like running a software business or a media business, where those are so clearly intertwined with what they're doing already. Like, if you're a YouTube creator and you're like starting a media business, but your own personal brand isn't pulled into that media business, it gets a little complicated.
This is awesome. I mean, I'm sure we could talk for another couple hours, and we'll have to do this again. But one thing I always ask guests when they come on the YouTube channel is, what advice would you give the 18-year-old version of yourself today? I mean, you figured out a lot on your own. Like, a lot of it broke the right way. Like, what are some of the things that you wish you knew that now you know?
I think, like, if I could tell my 18-year-old self anything, it would just be to continue going down the rabbit holes that I was going down. Like, I think when you're 18, you feel super stressed about so many different things. Like, what am I going to do in life? And you feel like school is overwhelming, all this stuff. Took for granted how much free time I actually had. I would love to be able to go down and waste like 6 hours just browsing the internet again. I learned so much when I do that. I find so many interesting things that for me, it would be like, just continue to go down the rabbit holes, figure out what niches I actually am interested in, and then be like super shameless about reaching out to people and trying to add value. If you find something that you are genuinely interested in and you're like super inspired by that person, even if they aren't well known or if it's just a niche, reach out to those people and try and be aligned with them, because that will pay huge dividends over time.
This is awesome. I mean, thank you so much for sharing all of your wealth of knowledge. I mean, 100 Thieves story is awesome, and everyone check out Blake Robbins on Twitter. I'll link in the description, and can't wait to do a bunch of stuff with you, man. Like, this is a really exciting time in history, especially for
Yeah,
creators.
thank you for, I mean, this is a ton of fun, and I appreciate you having me on.